Hi folks, Thomas Henson here with thomashenson.com, and today is another episode of Big Data, Big Questions. And so today I'm going to be tackling a question, or maybe a concept, of Splunk. And specifically we're going to tackle, okay, where does Splunk fit in for data engineers, machine learning engineers, and data scientists? Is this, an application they should learn? Is this something that can kind of further their career or help them out on projects? Or is Splunk more for the operations side and not something that we want to focus on from a data engineering perspective? So we're going to tackle that. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Splunk, so I can give you some information on it and places where you can find training on it. But then also I'm going to answer at the end, hey, is this something that I need to be putting in my tool bag or not? So find out more right after this. Welcome back. So today's Big Data, Big Question. Before we jump into it, I want to make sure that you're subscribed to this YouTube channel so that you never miss an episode around data engineering, machine learning, data science, IT concepts. Just make sure you subscribe and hit the notification button. Also, if you have any other questions, so say, I'm going through this question today on Splunk and offering some information around that. If maybe I don't hit that topic correctly, or you have further questions and I wasn't really clear, or maybe there's different things that I just didn't bring up because of time, put those in the comment section here below. I'll read them on air and I'll answer the questions as best I can. Or you can, reach out to me, find me on Twitter. You can find me, on my website, Big Data, Big Questions, and you can submit those questions. I'll answer them on air the best I can. So today's question comes in around Splunk. And so specifically it's, okay, is Splunk for data engineers, right? Should a data engineer be learning Splunk? Is that a tool set that you should have, in your tool bag? Or is it something that, if you're really trying to break into the, big data engineering roles, is that something you should really be looking at? And so before we jump into answering that question, I did want to talk a little bit about Splunk. If you're not familiar with Splunk, so Splunk's been around. It was founded in 2003, but it's really been growing crazy in the last, I'd say, 5 years or so. So I found out about Splunk about 3 or 4, maybe 5 years ago. We were working on a couple different projects. Actually, these were data analytics projects, so this is actually a valid question. Right now, Splunk, they're not an open source company, so we've talked about Hortonworks and Cloudera and some of their models and the way they go to business. Splunk is they charge per terabyte for their software, and so it allows for you to ingest machine data or any kind of data actually into your system. So it's $1 billion plus company. So like I said, it's been growing a lot here lately. They have user conferences. They're kind of known around the world. They really started off around analyzing machine data. And so that was kind of their first entry. And a lot of people started using it because, hey, it gave you the ability to, say you had some infrastructure and some servers that you wanted to pull some data off of, or anything kind of in your data center that you wanted to pull data off. You could set up these Splunk forwarders and it would pull the data in, and it was kind of just seen as that easy button. So we've talked about when you set up your Hadoop cluster, and then being able to ingest your data, and then how do you set up your visualization. There's a lot of different steps that you're doing there. Well, with Splunk, it was all in one consolidated package, right? You're able to lot take some log files, for example. You want to be able to bring those log files in and start setting them up like a pivot table. So think of it's a lot more complex than this right now. But when we first started out, it was kind of like, hey, you're able to pull your data in and you can start setting up tables just like you would in Excel. And so that was really, really beneficial, and that kind of helped with the stickiness of the product, right? So think about being able to set up your cluster in an hour and a half and be able to start pulling tables and doing things like that. That's just not something you can do, right, with Hadoop and the Hadoop ecosystem. And so Splunk was kind of that easy button for log files, and it's kind of evolved over time. So much so, a couple years ago I did a course around analyzing machine data with Splunk. And so Splunk was really interesting to me. Like I said, I was working on a couple different projects where we were using Splunk and using some of the Splunk-like competitors like Elasticsearch and the Yolk Stack. And so I really find that Splunk is an easy product to kind of learn, and it's a really fun product too. There's also a lot of hooks so you can actually move data from your Splunk environment into Hadoop. And so there's some things that you can do there. The tool for doing that is called Hunk. And so if you're interested in learning about Splunk and you're a Pluralsight member, just go ahead and check out my course called Analyzing Machine Data with Splunk. But Splunk has kind of, I said it started out with machine-generated data, but it's kind of blossomed outside of that. There's been a real big movement around solving data analytics problems. Because like I said, Splunk was the easy button, and it gives you the ability to, hey, you can set it up in, and I would say even less than an hour, right? You know, depending on your technical background, you could probably set it up in less than an hour and start analyzing your data there. And so they're really made a hold in DevOps. Also around machine learning. So I said that, you know, they do the machine data, but they have algorithms that you can start using. So you can actually pull some of these machine learning algorithms and start testing out your data sets and say, hey, you know, this would be a good candidate to be able to, you know, set up some kind of automation, right? Or set up a way to predict what's going on your network, what's going on pretty much any of the data that you're doing. So it's not just the machine data anymore. Also in IoT, so we've talked a ton here about IoT and some of the complexity there with, hey, you know, it's little sets of data that's pushing out, and think about, you know, having multiple, you know, millions of devices that need to come back in. Well, Splunk is able to do that, and with the built-in analytics tools for it, it's a really prime example for, you know, a tool to use. So talked a little bit about Splunk and, you know, my course on Pluralsight and where you can get more training, but the question was, is Splunk something a data engineer should learn? I think you should learn Splunk, or should be familiar with it, especially if you're on the data engineering side. Now, how much should you learn if you're a Hadoop administrator, or you're a Hadoop engineer and you're kind of already set in that area? I wouldn't spend a lot of time unless you have a project that's coming up. But if you're new and you're budding and you really like the operational or administrative side of data engineering, so we've talked about the different roles there. I think it's definitely a tool that you should look into, because there's a lot of options out there for career options. So if you have a little bit of Hadoop knowledge already, and you've kind of gone through that, there's a big demand for those kind of jobs. But there's also a huge demand for Splunk jobs too. So if it's something that you're looking to get into, you like the data analytics aspect of it, then definitely going through learning Splunk, and like I said, you know, it's easy to get set up and get started with it. So go through and set up some of those. Like I said, look at a lot of the jobs specifications. So if you're looking to do this specifically for some kind of job, then, you know, if there's a requirement, or if you see something there, then definitely go in and learn Splunk. Also, should you use it in some of your projects? Well, it's going to depend on what projects. I would say if you're doing anything that's machine generated and you want to stand something up and you don't mind, you know, you guys already have a license for Splunk, or you guys are looking to purchase a license for Splunk, then there's some definite benefits to using that technology in your project. So it's all going to depend on what you're working at, but just know, you know, the ins and outs. And like I said, that's why it's important to kind of get exposure to these kind of information and this kind of technology, just so you know when to use them on certain projects. So that's my big data, big questions for today. Make sure you subscribe so that you never miss an episode. Like I was just talking about, you need to be exposed to a lot of these tools so you know how to use them in projects, or if you're trying to make a change in your career or further your career, these are definite educational things that you should be doing. So until next time, see you folks.